The bill before you is Second Substitute House Bill 1044, creating prison to post-secondary education pathways, as amended by the Human Services Reentry and Rehabilitation Committee. For a bit of background, the Department of Corrections must offer certain education and work programs to persons incarcerated at state correctional institutions based on available funding and a set of specific prioritized goals. In 2017, the legislature authorized DOC to implement associate workforce degree programs within correctional institutions. Individuals may be selected to participate in state-funded associate degree programs based on priority criteria determined by the department and if specific conditions are met as identified in statute. The bill before you today expands the Department of Corrections authority to implement associate workforce degree programs to a post-secondary education degree and also certificate programs, and this is limited to bachelor's degree. It removes the requirement that priority for educational programming should be given to individuals within 5 years of release and removes the prohibition for individuals with life sentences accessing education programming. It requires the department to establish a process for identifying and assessing individuals with learning disabilities, traumatic brain injuries, and other cognitive impairments to determine whether the person requires accommodations and also establish a process to provide such accommodations. It requires a report to the legislature on the number of individuals released that were in educational programming and not, as well as a review of the department's identification and assessment of individuals with learning disabilities and other cognitive impairments. It requires WISIP to study enrollment, completion, and recidivism rates of incarcerated individuals in the post-secondary education system post-release, with an initial report due in October of 2024, among other provisions. There is a fiscal note available, and the estimated general fund impact is $1.7 million in the 21-23 biennium and $3 million in the 4-year. This is associated with one-time and ongoing costs to expand secure internet access to additional correctional facilities, as well as FTEs for the identification and assessing of the learning disabilities, as well as additional IT security for expanding secure internet. There's also funding for WISIP and the Student Achievement Council for staff support for the reporting requirements and other provisions within the bill. This concludes my presentation, and I can take any questions.
Senator Schessler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kayla, is there currently any cap on the number of associate degrees an inmate can attain while they are in a Washington State prison?
I'm not aware of a cap in regard to how many degrees, but there is a cap related to how much funding is available to the department to actually allow them to be part of a program that gives them a degree. And also there's certain criteria that the department follows in order to give people or allow them to be part of the degree program.
Okay, perhaps someone later testifying. I was here when the priority was given to inmates in the last 5 years over people that are farther out. Perhaps someone in later testimony can explain why that change is included.
And I can follow up on the cap number as well with the department.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Senator Geldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe I missed it in the fiscal note. I heard the cost associated with administering the program and the infrastructure for internet for connectivity. I didn't hear in there the actual cost of the education. Like, is that not included in the fiscal note, or did I miss it?
No, the fiscal note doesn't actually specify how much the cost for the actual programming. I think that perhaps they were assuming they could expand who was eligible for the program with it, but not necessarily receive additional funding. I could definitely get additional information on how much is currently spent within their budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Senator, is the question whether how the tuition's being paid?
That's correct, Madam Chair. I guess I'm just curious, this jump from the associates to the bachelor degree level, like what's that going to cost the state? And I just didn't hear that in the fiscal note. Maybe it's covered somewhere else.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the third bullet in the bill summary says there's going to be a periodic review for all incarcerated individuals, and then specifically says including persons of color, which seems redundant. But then when I went to the bill, I didn't see any reference to persons of color. So I may have missed it. If you could direct me to that section. And I don't need it right now, but it's just a little confusing to me why that's in the summary, and I wasn't able to find any reference in the bill.
I can definitely find the section and refer you to it after committee via email. I believe that was part of the amendment from the Human Services Committee, but I can confirm that.
Okay, and we do have the text of the bill in the EBB if you want to search for it. Any other questions? All right, let's start the public hearing. We have 12 people signed in to testify. We'll start with Joel Strom and then Dan Goldhaber. Joel? Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Rolfes and members of the committee. My name is Joel Strom, and I'm the Executive Director of University Beyond Bars. We strongly support the expansion of post-secondary education for people incarcerated in Washington State prisons. UBB is a nonprofit that has been offering post-secondary educational opportunities at the men's prison in Monroe for over 15 years, and we've seen firsthand the transformative power of a liberal arts education. For years, we've been one of a few providers in Washington of the kinds of post-secondary education this bill expands to include. I want to speak briefly to the importance of the student support services this bill provides in light of Congress's recent and landmark restoration of Pell Grants for incarcerated students after a 26-year ban. In 2016, UBB, in partnership with Seattle Central College, was chosen as one of 67 pilot sites for the Department of Ed's Second Chance Pell experiment. In the intervening 5 years, we've stewarded hundreds of incarcerated students through the FAFSA process and helped them resolve issues that might render them Pell ineligible. What our experience has taught us is that the financial aid process is extremely complicated, opaque for the uninitiated, and frequently confusing. While the FAFSA Simplification Act promises to streamline some of these processes, everyone will need assistance. Students will need to be informed of their rights and limits of their reward, and this is very much an equity issue. Those students in need of the most support, those for whom the process has the most barriers, are students who've experienced significant disruptions in their formal education, the majority of whom are low-income students and students of color. We support this bill, and we strongly advise investing in the process of supporting students with services in student affairs and financial aid. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Joel. Jacob Vigdor, you are next.
Chair Rolfes, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Jake Vigdor, faculty legislative representative at UW, elected to represent my 4,500 colleagues before you this evening in strong support. Second substitute House Bill 1044. So I speak to you today. There are about 18,000 Washingtonians in state custody. Each one of those inmates costs our taxpayers about $41,000 a year. This bill proposes to spend about $36 per inmate per year to help them chart a course to a better life through higher education. Now, if you look at what studies have shown about the effectiveness of these interventions, they suggest that they can help up to 10% of released prisoners to avoid returning to an incarcerated state. And that would return to the taxpayers of Washington State an incredible return on investment, up to $100 for every dollar invested. My colleagues at UW stand ready to do our part in realizing the hopes and aspirations they conceive as a result of this legislation. Thank you.
Sam Locke.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sam Locke, and I'm the legislative liaison to the Associated Students of the University of Washington, Bothell, testifying in favor of HB 1044. Only a few years ago, the process began at the state level for my uncle to be released from prison. He had been imprisoned for well over 20 years due to drug offenses in the 90s. During his time in prison, he became sober, worked as the inmate's barber, painted countless beautiful watercolor scenes, and wrote a book. He is now 61 and at the age of his reintegration into society, which requires him to partake in work release. The only opportunities made available to him were manual labor jobs, such as a shipyard, the sort of work which would be hard on anyone's body, let alone someone who the AARP would define as a senior citizen. I support HB 1044 because people who have been incarcerated deserve the same career opportunities when they re-enter society as anyone else would have. As Section 1 of the bill demonstrates, people who received education while incarcerated are more likely to be employed following release and less likely to engage in recidivism. This is the economically beneficial choice because more people with degrees will enter the workforce. Thank you for your time. Please vote in support of this bill.
Thank you, Sam, and good luck to your uncle. We have two senators with questions. Senator Rivers, to whom would you like to address your question?
I would like to direct my question to Jacob. So why liberal arts? When I told my mom I was going to get a degree in political science, she about wrung my neck because she saw no use. So why liberal arts? Why limit it to liberal arts, I guess?
Well, there's a lots of different courses of study that fall under the heading of liberal arts. So I don't want to make it sound like liberal arts is a bad thing. So I'm an economist by training. Economics is considered part of the liberal arts. It prepares you for all sorts of careers, whether we're talking about banking, finance, all sorts of things that are in demand in the modern economy. And my understanding is that, part of the goal of this legislation is to just sort of make sure that there's a plan in place. It expands things like screening for learning disabilities that could help even someone who's just interested in earning an associate's degree. Those kinds of barriers to earning higher degrees, whether they be associates or bachelors, are really important. And without addressing them, that's a real obstacle that can be in someone's way.
Okay, Senator Wellman.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Well, first of all, I thank you so much for this bill. When I was, it seems like this is, if ever there was a time for a high school and beyond plan, this is the time that there be a plan, which I don't necessarily see as part of this. I wanted to ask about that, but I also wanted to comment that heading up a company for Washington State that did continuing education across the United States for various community colleges, and with LaGuardia, which is the community college for the state of New York that sees to education in the prisons. The recidivism rate is just incredible compared to the state of Washington's. I mean that in a very positive way. And I wondered whether or not individualized planning is done for these students in terms of, moving on with their lives, or is it just access to education? And that could include apprenticeships, etc.
I'm assuming that question is directed to me. So I'm going to hop in and say that the education for the incarcerated individual is part of their overall reentry planning. So, and actually it's only part of their reentry planning if it's part of their reentry planning. So if it is part of their goal, long-term goal, when they reenter society to have an education so that they can get jobs XYZ, then the education piece is part of that, just a small part of a pretty detailed reentry plan. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Only in very small part, but I appreciate your input.
I am guessing that Senator Darnielle and Senator Claire Wilson are experts on this and may be able to reconnect offline.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue with our public hearing. Thank you all for joining us. Next person up is Shane Sweetman.
Good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Shane Sweetman. I'm here representing myself in support of House Bill 1044. We all know that education is an important factor to have financial success and stability on the outside, to be a valid member of the community. I have become a member of the Second Chance Pell Program. I am currently in my last quarter to finish my associate's degree. What I've learned through this journey is education isn't just about financial success and means. We can be successful on the streets, but if we still have a hole within us, we still have the opportunity to fall. What I found when I found education is that it gives us a feeling of self-worth and value and allows us to feel that we have meaning in our life instead of living a meaningless existence. If it wasn't for me propelling myself in this journey into the Second Chance Pell program, I don't know where I'd be when I got out. But the ability to have this education has not only taught me who I am as a person, as a man, and as a father, but it helped me guide my children through the steps of their education. And instead of just telling my son, go down this path, I can walk it with him in real time. So when my son looks at me and says, Dad, this is hard, I don't want to do it, I can look at my son and say, Dad's right here doing this with you. It's not that hard, son, we're here to support you. This has saved my life. And a lot of people look at me when I say save my life and they don't understand what it is giving me meaning in life. And if it can do that for me, it can do that for many more incarcerated. A lot of us in here have an empty hole within us, but nobody's willing to admit it. And I found that education has given me the knowledge I need to feel that and make me feel as a better person and feel that I'll be successful when I reintegrate into society. This is an important bill, and I feel this should pass for the sake of the community, society, and all the people incarcerated that want to make themselves better. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Shane, for joining us and for sharing your story. Melissa Kolzik.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair and the Committee of Ways and Means. My name is Melissa Coltec, and I'm a carpenter in the Carpenters Union. And currently we do have a program assisting. Oh, I've lost my track. We do have a program for the women's facility called the TRACK program, and I'm unaware of the one made for the men's. I'm speaking in pro for this bill in hopes to give a constructive path for both male and female inmates, especially once they leave. The ability for carpenters in the union to come there on their off time and pre-train people to learn about our trade and learn about our field gives them a hopeful opportunity to join the apprenticeship once they leave. We already have a basic setup. However, this bill may expand and give people more hope and knowledge about our trade and let them understand their acceptance is not always based on their past and giving them an opportunity for growth with a secured wage and environment, which is absolutely crucial, I think, for anyone leaving a program such as that to have some sense of security in a very unsecure world. Thank you for your time. And again, I speak in pro for this motion.
Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Kurt, Patseibert Love, and then Kirk Kegler. Pat. We can't hear you yet. Not yet.
Oh,
there you go. We got that.
Okay. For the record, I'm Patseibert Love from the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. I'm the Policy Associate for Corrections Education. In addition, I'm also a member of the Statewide Reentry Council. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Rolfes and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and support a second substitute House Bill 1044, prison access to post-secondary education on behalf of our justice-involved individuals like Mr. Sweetman. Thank you again, Mr. Sweetman. You are always more impressive each time I have the privilege to hear your experience. It should be noted that this is the first time we've had the testimony of a former or currently, incarcerated student. Providing prison education speaks to our values of equity and access to regional, formal, accredited college educational programs, focusing on sustainable living, career pathways leading to safer communities, greater economic investment, and reducing recidivism. Not everyone is built for a vocational degree. This buried or post-secondary education has a huge impact on our female population who are not always interested in a vocational career. Cost-benefit analysis done by the Washington State Institute of Public Policy indicates that for every dollar that is spent we save about $20, and there is 100% chance that the benefit on that cost saving is to exceed 100%. That is as good as it gets. I'm asking you to give our students access to academic choice, investment in people and community leave, while leveraging career pathways is always invaluable, and it represents who we are. Thank you for your support on such critical issues contributing to the successful reentry into our communities. I'd be happy to respond to any questions, and I would like to take 1 second. Senator Wellman had asked a question about individual plans. I thought Kayla did a great job of responding from the individual plan from the Department of Corrections. We also, in our educational program, we provide an educational navigator that assists transition of students from incarceration to out in the community in their educational endeavors. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Kurt.
Hello, I'm Kirk Kegler for the record. I'm a business professor at Tacoma Community College. Thank you for this opportunity, Madam Chairman, and the Senate and Ways Committee. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm new to this. I've taught for 2 years. My previous life was a business owner right there in Lacey, Washington. I owned a family fun center, and but my passion and dream was always to teach. And little did I know I'd be teaching in a prison system. And it is my lifelong work now. I have fallen in love with it. And I could talk about all the great things that I've experienced in the short 2 years that I've been there and seen the impact of this education and what it's done for these women out at the Washington Correction Center for Women in Purdy. But I thought it would be better if you just heard a letter from one of my students. They're the ones that are getting the actual experience from this, and I really am proud of them and seeing the changes in their life. So this is from one student.
Kurt, I just want to, Kurt, we are on a time frame, so hopefully it's not a 4-page letter. Okay.
No, short letter. I know. I saw my time go off already, so I should have just not talked about myself. After getting to prison, I was feeling really down about myself and my future. I found out that the prison offered many different types of programs, and I looked to this as a way to change my path in life because the things I was doing before clearly weren't working. So far, I have graduated with technical design and I am close to graduating in associates in applied science and business management. I not only have learned so much about my each program, which will be valuable tools for me to succeed in the future, but I have also learned about myself. I have learned what type of student I am, how I act in a professional environment. I have learned what my strengths and my weaknesses are, as well as what my threats and opportunities are to me. I have also gained confidence in myself. TCC has been a life changer for me. I have faith in myself to face the challenges that life will present me, and I have a path that will lead me to a productive, successful, and a respectful member of my community. So thank you for letting me share that with you. I'm sorry if it took a little long.
Thank you for bringing her voice to us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. Next up, Kaz Joshua.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Kaz Joshua. In my day job, I serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Students at Whitman College. I come before you as a board member of Fabian's Fund, a nonprofit, community-based organization that supports educational efforts for our incarcerated brothers and sisters, working with organizations like Black Prisoners Caucus, BPC Teach in a number of institutions. I'm here to speak in support of the legislation that seeks to expand opportunities for those who are incarcerated. I want to comment a little bit on Senator Wagner's question. The people of color component has got to do with attention to a disparate racial impact of the work that is being proposed in this bill. We know that there are differences. I want to encourage you to support this bill and end with the words of Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Donahue. It says Seattle Department of Transportation. Are you in the right hearing?
I am, and hopefully my comments will indicate why. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks first to Madam Chair and this committee for the opportunity to provide comments today in support of House Bill 1044. For the record, my name is Matt Donahue, and I'm the director of the Roadway Structures Division for Seattle DOT. Effectively, that makes me the lead bridge engineer for the city of Seattle. My team at SDOT is comprised of bridge engineers, movable bridge operators, bridge maintenance staff, which include union electricians, mechanics, carpenters, concrete finishers, and installation maintenance workers. I'm a leader in government as exercised through municipal engineering. And like most city departments, I approach my work with an equity lens, and this imbues me with a very specific interest in workforce equity. I believe that providing support for the incarcerated members of our community, let me stress that, incarcerated members of our community, to successfully reintegrate into society through educational programs has a direct positive benefit on workforce equity. And for us at the city, an equitable and strong workforce helps me in particular to find the staff resources that my team and I need to do our part to keep the traveling public safe. We need staff with associate and bachelor level degrees or other skilled trade craft training that are coming out of these criminal justice systems ready to work for people that protect public safety like the city of Seattle. I strongly support higher education opportunities for people incarcerated in Washington State prisons and full integration of community-based education programs like the University Beyond Bars Group, the Black Prisoners Caucus Teach Program, and the Freedom Education Project into those services. And full integration in this case means more opportunity for the Department of Corrections to collaborate with these community-based organizations and to continue to listen to what they have to say. I encourage this committee to recognize the importance of this bill and to approve it for movement to the next legislative stage. Thanks for your time and for listening to my comments, and I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Dirk, you are up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, committee. My name is Dirk Van Velzen, and I'm the CEO of the Prison Scholar Fund. I'll share a little bit of my journey and address a couple of the questions in this bill. In my case, I was incarcerated from 1999 to 2015. I spent 15 years in prison, but I was lucky because my father had a checkbook and was able to pay for my tuition. From behind bars, I got my associate's degree and my bachelor's degree from Penn State that had a paper-based distance education program. And along that journey, I saw a lot of other people who do the same thing as myself, but the Pell Grant was not reinstated at this point, and there were really no programs inside the prison. So I started the Prison Scholar Fund, and we raised about $60,000 and supported a number of students before I was released in 2015. One of the things that's critical to note is it took me about 10 years to get my 4-year degree because doing it from inside a prison is very hard. And the second thing to mention is some of the people we supported had life sentences, and they had a lot of time to do. But some of them, laws changed. They got out early, and with the degree we gave them, or the degree they earned, they got out and started businesses. They hired other people coming out of prison. The other thing I should note is student agency is very important. Liberal arts is great if that's your thing. Some people are into STEM, some people are into coding, so the opportunity should be there. And I just want to share one last thing, which is the impact of education. The moment I was out of prison and in work release, I was a student at the University of Washington in a nonprofit management program. Within a year of being released from prison, I was at a residential program at the Stanford Business School doing social entrepreneurship. And just last week, I got accepted to Harvard Kennedy School nonprofit leadership program. So those are all really amazing things, but none of that would have happened if I didn't have a dad with a checkbook who, opened up opportunity for me, and very few people have that opportunity, and I really think they should. So I'm in support of the bill, of course, and happy to answer any questions you might have. And it's nice to see some friendly faces, Senator Wellman and Senator Darnielle.
Good. Thank you for joining us, Dirk.
Thank you.
Timothy, you are our last presenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Timothy Tipton. I'm here in support of House Bill 1044. Specifically, I'm here to speak of the restorative power of higher education in the prison system. I'm a formerly incarcerated student. Currently, I'm a full-time student at Clark College in Vancouver, Washington. I started my criminal career before I was 18, right? My first prison sentence was at the age of 28, right? And literally through higher education in the prison system, I have been able to create a life for myself outside of prison. I've been out for almost 2 years now, and that's the longest time. I'm 38 now. That's the longest time in the last 20 years that I've spent outside of either a jail cell or a prison cell. And the reason for that is because of the transformative power of higher education that I was able to participate in while being incarcerated in Washington State. It's allowed me to do so many things that have increased the success of my life. I've spoken at multiple national conferences, including the National Conference for Higher Education in Prisons, the National Conference for the Coalition of Adult Basic Education. I've been featured in a couple newspaper articles in the Columbian. I've been on a radio, interviewed on the radio, Think Out Loud program. So many successes in my life that I attribute to my ability to start my college career while incarcerated. Like when I landed in prison for the second time in my life at 33 years old, right? I had no direction. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I didn't want to keep coming back and I needed to change, right? And it was through higher education and the fact that Washington State has these programs that I was able to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and to actually achieve the success that like I'm destined to achieve, right? So without taking up too much more of your time, this is an incredibly important bill. There are clearly thousands, more like me in Washington State that could benefit from higher education. And thank you very much for your time.
Timothy, thank you for joining us. Clearly you speak for a lot of people, as you pointed out. Thank you. That concludes our public hearing on Second Substitute House Bill 1044. There were 110 people signed in not wishing to testify, all of whom were in support.